the Plant Daddies podcast.
Josh from Larkins. Hello, how are you?
Yo. I'm very, very good, man. Very good. Thank you.
What have you been up to? What's been going on?
Today I've been in the studio just with a new artist, and yeah, just busy, man. Just busy. Like, having a studio is crazy, and kind of diving into this songwriting production world like full steam ahead. So that's kind of taking up a million hours of the day, which I never knew were even available. But I'm loving it. I must admit, like, going from the whole band world into songwriting and production world, I am kind of obsessing over it at the moment, which is a good thing.
Good. Because you put out an album not too long ago with Larkins.
Yeah.
When was that? Remind me.
Oh my God. 3 months ago.
Sounds right. How did that all go?
It was good. I mean, we got number 12 in the Indies, which was very cool. It was really good. I mean, it was one of those things, like, as a band, you've had those songs ready for a year, right? So those songs to me already felt old, and we've been playing them for a while. But to finally have a body of work out was just overwhelming, inspiring. It was very cool. It was cool to see, like, the outpouring from people that have been waiting it for so long. I think sometimes I get in my own head, I forget that people actually want to listen to music that I've written. Yeah, it fucks with you so much, the idea that people like actually like the words that you've written. So I still like the day that it came out, I just like went cold turkey and just went off the grid because I just couldn't deal with it, you know?
Don't blame you. I think going off grid's important.
I think it is. I think it's hard, and I think it's really hard, especially in the modern music industry and artists that I work with. I would always try and implore them not to, but I do think you get to a point where you're like, if I don't do this, I'm going to crack, and that's not a good thing.
I find it interesting to. It feels like there are kind of like two flavors of artists at the moment. Like, if you look at like Adele and Hosier and Ed Sheeran are the names that are springing to mind. Between album cycles, you do not hear from them, and then they come back. But then there are other artists that keep, like, maintain their online presence between cycles and but have nothing to talk about. That must be so challenging to, like, constantly be a personality without a tangible thing to be talking about.
I think that's very, very, very right. It's cool that you said two flavors. That's interesting. I guess those artists, especially like my studio's next to Rob Kerwin, who is Hosier's producer and PJ Harvey's producer, and Rob's amazing. So, like, getting an insight into the life of Hosier has been very cool. But I would tend to agree with you. I think the thing that kind of baffles me at the moment is that, like, especially being on this side of the industry, and you'll know this more than most, is that you see stuff and it's so bait. And I see this stuff like, you know, like the Charlie Puth thing with the light switch. Like, I love that content. That content's great. But it's like, I have to say to people, like, you know, that's not real. Like, that's not actually real. Like, do you guys know that? And I forget that, like, when you're on the other side of the industry, just as a consumer, you maybe don't analyze it as much as I would do, or as much as someone from the music industry would. And you're like, you know that that's not real. He's like, that's not real. That song's been done for a year. So it's weird seeing that cycle, you know, and I'm sure you'll see it. You'll see people start to load up the TikToks, and you're like, here we go, something's coming. You have to use it. I think it's cool, but if you have to see past it sometimes.
The one that gets me, and I'm not going to name names, but I think you'll know exactly who I mean, was when someone put out a tour and they accidentally forgot to turn off pre-sale. So the whole show sold out, but hang on, we're just on the phone to the venue to see if we can do the next night. Oh, I happen to be free. The venue happens to be free. We've managed to get it all booked in half an hour, and it's on sale.
Crazy. What a coincidence.
What a coincidence. You've just got the best luck. So it's interesting. We've kind of jumped into TikTok early because that's something I wanted to talk about. Like, in this day and age of single after single after single after single, promoting through TikTok and these kind of like these new marketing strategies, to decide to put out an album must have been a pretty bold move. What made you decide to go that route?
I think from my perspective, it was always, and from my head, it was like this mixtape idea, having grown up with like the likes of just being inspired by like the way that hip hop was and SoundCloud culture. And the way that I'd made the record, which was on my laptop in my bedroom, I really wanted it to come out as a mixtape. And it just so happened that like it had got to the point where we were like, this could be an album. Like there was enough songs. So that was definitely influenced by our label at the time, which was cool. But I think it just gets to the point where, like, as a band, you're like, we've got to a point where we've got this body of work. And I always think as your first album is like your greatest hits. So say, you know, I put that out when I was 24, 25. I'm like, all those songs are my life up until now, which is wild. And I think I just got to the point where I was desperate to bring something out and say some stuff. And I still, like, I look back at that record and it's really not old, but to me, it's probably 18 months old. And I'm really proud of it. And I'm super proud of the songs. But for me, it's a timestamp. It's a timestamp of my life then. And the, like, worries and stresses of being a boy in the 21st century up until that point in my life. And I think for me, it was like a coming of age record, just as like a self-reflection, which was cool, but I was just desperate to put it out. And after that, I definitely crashed and was like, whoa, that was like a big, you know, like after a marathon run or something, people have these like days where they're like, I've given everything. Like for me, putting that record out, like for a few weeks, even months, even now, I'm still a bit like fatigued from like just pouring into that record, you know? And if it wasn't like that, I'd be really upset.
It's interesting you say about, you know, a coming of age and a timestamp, because I've never thought about the fact that for a debut album, you've got, you know, 24, 25, 26 years of experiences to draw from. And then a second album, you've got 2 years. Like you've got the stories that happen in those last 2 years, and that's it. I
think that's the beauty of the debut record as well, though, because you're combining all that experience with no experience of ever making an album. So like I remember like when we first, someone had said like, Josh, it shouldn't be a mixtape, it should just be a record. And I just went and looked at like the Strokes debut record and like the Smiths debut record and like Haim's debut record and like all of these debut records. And for them, it was such a like imprint of, look, we know it's not going to be the best record ever, but this is where we're at right now. And this is who we are. And I feel that way about the Larkins record. I don't think they're the best songs I've ever written, but I think they were the best songs I could write at the time. And I'm really proud of that. And I look back and I like feel so nostalgic. And the way the record opens up and closes, I'm really proud of it. I'm like, I love it as a record. I would go and listen to it. And it's the music I wanted to make at the time, which I think is dead cool.
Yeah, man. Are there songs on there from when you were 15, 16?
I think there were definitely phrases. I think the no life thing I'd had for ages, especially with my partner, who'd always say that, especially if I go away on tour, it'd be like, I've got no life when you're not around. That was a big thing. Over It, I'd definitely been writing for a while. Are We Having Any Fun Yet had been a single that was out like a year prior. So that concept had been battling around my head for probably like 4 or 5 years. All of them, to be honest. You just draw on different things. You know this, you wrote songs, like you draw on all sorts. And sometimes I do this thing a lot when I'm writing, is like I'll have chord patterns or I'll have a drum loop and I'll just start murmuring over it. And sometimes you're coming up with stuff, you're like, and you start to say these words and phrases, and then you start to hear phrases and see like phonetics and intonations and the way you sang it, and you start picking out words and then writing around it. And I tend to do that and then go like, what did that mean? Like, why did I say that? Why did I feel the need to say that? And then you're like, oh yeah, that's why. So I prefer songwriting like that because it feels more natural. I've never been one who particularly writes poetry or write ideas down first. It kind of just comes in melody. And I think that's a lot how the record worked. I think going back and looking at that record now, I can pinpoint where all of those feelings came from. And it was either sex or being in Manchester or addictions or obsessions. For me, like I can draw on all those different things for those songs.
So now you've got a debut record and it's out and it is this imprint and this timestamp, I guess like a time capsule in a way as well. And we're talking about TikTok and singles and stuff. Do you launch straight into a second album? Are you going to adjust how you approach Larkins?
Very much so. That's a really good question. I think I'm very open to TikTok, and we as a band have always been very proud of the way in which we've done social media. For me, like we've stayed even through lockdown on something like Spotify alone's like stayed at like 250,000. And a lot of people will admit that they don't really care about that. Well, I do. Like I care about who's listening to our band because it means a lot. And the reason that those numbers have stayed and that amount of people listen is because from the very beginning, we were very open about the way in which we use social media, whether that was the gram, whether it was Twitch streaming, whether it was Discord servers. And we owe a lot of that to our bass player, Henry, who's kind of been very open about that. We have 30,000 followers on Instagram, and Henry reckons he's spoken to like 80% of those people personally,
Jesus.
which is fucking wild.
I have significantly less followers on Instagram and still can't give you that sort of percentage.
It's wild, right? But I mean, like when we first started the band, I always say this, but I used to serve pizzas in Pizza Express while I was at school, and we had the band, and I'd used to like have like a little red penny that you see them in, and I had my phone in there, and I used to go to the toilet or the staff room every half an hour, and we'd basically put 20 quid on an Instagram advert, so we were getting followers, and I would go in, message people and be like, yo, it's Josh, send a picture and be like, thank you so much, do you want to come and see us at the Castle Hotel at the weekend? And then we'd go and play a show. We'd not even released a song, and there was like 300 people at the Deaf Institute. And everyone was like, how are you guys doing this? And I was like, how are you guys not? Like, this is how you need to run a band. So I guess with TikTok, I've been very much like, this is the new world and this is how it should be viewed. And I personally see it as like an A&R tool. So you can put an idea up in the morning, and if people are vibing with it, you can make the song in the afternoon. That's how I see it. And I think that's the thing with like the Charlie Puth thing, is like, this isn't real, but he gets the vibe. We can show people how we make songs now. And rather than waiting for this aristocratic idea of like, oh yes, there's a hit, and I hear that hit, and that's going to be a hit as long as we give it to this person and they mix it. I'm just like, TikTok will tell you in the morning. Like,
yeah,
I think that's how it should work. And I work with so many people now that are blowing up on TikTok, and they're so fucking talented. It's untrue.
I guess you kind of have to be like a TikTok artist, because it's so fleeting. I use the word TikTok artist very liberally, an artist that's on TikTok, because TikTok is so pacey.
Yeah.
If you're not constantly churning out something new, people are going to lose interest.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And I think you get like these rumors of like, TikTok have said you have to post 7 times a day, and if you don't, TikTok's going to hurt you for it. I think if you've got great content, you should just bring it out as much as possible. I think as long as you're unadulterated, you as authentic as possible, I think TikTok will reward you. I genuinely believe that. Like, I kind of believe in TikTok. Instagram, to an extent, I don't believe in anymore, because I know how that works. But I'm still of a believer. Like, I believe in TikTok that if you're good enough, it will work. And I think anyone who's blown up will tell you that. And everyone who's trying to blow up, just bring out as like natural content as possible. That would be like my biggest advice. Because I see that now, and especially working as a songwriter, I still, like, my bread and butter is going on TikTok and finding young artists and being like, just come to the studio and let's write your first song, because that's exciting and it's raw and it's cool. And you still see these kids now, and straight away they come through the phone as in just they've got something, they've just got something special. Maybe they've found a beat that they're rapping over, or they've found someone playing guitar and they're just like, what do you guys think of this? Like, I just think that's so fucking cool. I just think that's so cool that people are doing that.
Yeah, man. So this songwriting and production thing, I'm sure it's been part of what you've been doing for a long time, but it's very recently become like a very public part of you do. What prompted that, and how's that balance been between the band and outwardly being a producer and a songwriter?
I think the balance is like another question, and that's definitely a tricky one to answer. But I think like the reason it came about was a mutual friend of ours, Lucy Deacon. She was bringing her first mixtape out, and her management said, Josh, look, you finish your record. We love the way it sounds. Like, would you be interested in producing hers? And would you be interested in writing it as well? And I was like, yes, 100%. And I'd already been in other writing sessions with people and really enjoyed it. So we basically came in, we booked 2 months out in my studio, and I said, let's go in and write the record. And she brought this kid called Carl Ziegler in with her. Carl's 22, like Canadian born, and basically like an amazing engineer. And he just brought his laptop in and he was like, I'm going to engineer. And I was like, okay. So we spent 2 months together. I had 2 months of writing sessions after that. And I secretly said to Carl on the last day, I was like, do you want to come back tomorrow? And we've been doing that now for the past like 18 months. And as soon as we branded it, as soon as I was like, it shouldn't be Josh Noble and Carl Ziegler, it should be called Soap. And I'd had this idea bubbling under for a while. I mean, I was inspired as a kid by like James Ford and Flood and Mike Crossy and people like this. And the reason that I loved them so much was because they had a brand. And when they worked with people, I remember seeing Foles had announced they were going to work with James Ford for the record. And I knew what that next Foles album was going to be like. And the same for the Arctic Monkeys. Like they were working with James Ford or they're working with Flood, and you're like, oh my God, I know what that's going to sound like. And I really wanted that imprint that if people were going to work with Soap, it would sound like Soap. And I just loved that idea. So yeah, we've been doing it for a year. We now work with like some major labels and some amazing young artists. It takes up probably most of my time right now. We've had a load of Radio 1 plays, which has been surreal. Our first artist just signed her first major record deal. So it's just awesome. It's been an amazing year. And for me as a songwriter, it's nice to go in, write a song and be like, done. For so long, I've toiled over my own songs and the way it's going to look, the music video, the artwork, the way I want to present it, the way it's going to work live. And it's nice to just go in and go, right, you've got 2 days to write the best song possible. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's your job.
Is it also a positive that, like, do you get to explore genres that don't sit within Larkins?
I would say so. I mean, one of the artists, Phoebe Hall, who I originally found on Instagram, came in and we spent the first day just talking about her and the way in which she presents music and the way she identifies as a queer artist. And for me, that was like, oh, okay, so let's start doing that. And for me, it was like a learning process as well of like how to write for someone and how to enable someone to write the best that they can. My big thing is that I've been in a million writing sessions for my own project. And sometimes you feel starved a little bit and you feel under pressure and you feel as if that you're kind of there playing second fiddle. And I've been in enough now to know what's good and what's not. And I want artists to come in and feel like we're there to lift them up, not the other way around. Like with Larkins, there's a massive ego attached to that. And I know that. Whereas when artists come in, I want them to feel, 1, I want them to feel comfortable. 2, that they can say their truth. And 3, that we're there to help them. That's the main priority. And from the beginning, me and Carl have always stuck by that. And I think that's why it's going so well. It's because you get to work with these artists like Phoebe, who comes in and says, look, I've never really written a song, but I've been through all this stuff. I identify as queer and I want to write about that. And you're like, okay, let's go. Let's do an EP. And for me, that was like so exciting. And I got such a buzz off that record coming out. Like, yeah, it's really, really nice. And I'm loving doing that. And especially with Carl, like he's the best partner I could ask for. He's awesome, really fast. And like, I believe he's like the next Mark Ronson. Like that's kind of where I'm at with him. So I'm excited by it and it's an exciting project and the way things are going is awesome. So yeah, I'm buzzed.
Amazing. That's it's really funny you say that about Phoebe having never written a song, because like I swear, like every artist where I'm like, how was your day? What did you get up to? 90% of the time the answer I get was, oh, I was in a session. I've never been in a writing session and I probably will never be in a writing session, but yeah. I've never known how that would start. Like I was thinking about it a while ago. I was like, imagine just going into a room with someone you've never met and you have to write a song. Like, how do you start? So it's interesting that you just start talking and see what comes out.
It's very, very weird. I used to find it really strange. And there's different avenues you can go down. You can go in and be like, hey, nice to meet you. Have you got any ideas? Or you can go in and go, hey, nice to meet you. I've got this idea. Or there's like, oh, let's sit and talk for a bit and see how you're feeling. But I think the weird thing is that people don't get is like you go into a writing session and especially as the person who's going there to help someone write a song, like you're doing it for free. So someone comes to the studio for the day, that song might come out in 8 months' time. The royalties for that might take 16, 18 months to come through. So the song that you're writing today, that I've written today, I might not actually see for like a year, 2 years, which is wild. But at the same time, you're buying lottery tickets every day. So every day you're writing these songs, you're building your catalog. But I think as a writer myself and like having an artist project, it is very strange. And I've been into sessions where it's just not worked. And sometimes you don't vibe with someone, you're not on the right wavelength. And I think you're right in that, especially in London, you find these artists that are being passed around from writer to writer. So a lot of the time when I get people in, they're like, oh, I've just written with this person and this person and this person and this person and this person. You're like, yeah, I know all of those people. Great. And they come in and they're like, ugh. And their record labels have passed them around just to see if something will work. It's like throwing stuff at a wall and just seeing if something sticks. And I just want people to come into writing sessions and feel like I said before, like you're there to lift them up a bit. And that they come in, fresh perspective, tell me about you, tell me about where you're at, tell me what you've been listening to, and let's just try and write something that feels as most you. If it's an album cut, then fine. If it's a single, cool. Like if we're going to write something cool, then great. If not, then fine. We'll write something for me, and then we'll write something for someone else that I've got an idea for. I think that's the best way to do it.
So I want to jump back to the band a bit and the album. So you're self-managed and you have been for a number of years.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest challenge of having to kind of do everything yourself?
It's the whole thing's been challenging. I think it's that you sometimes don't have someone to bounce off, and I think that's been really hard. Like it's really hard meeting new artists now who are self-managed, and they always ask you like, how did you do it? Or should I get a manager or should I not? I've seen amazing managers. I've seen horrible managers. We've just started working with a new manager and I'm loving the experience. Like it's really good for me and it's really good for us. As someone who is a massive control freak and struggles a lot with OCD, like I don't think that's helped. I think that's been kind of tricky. But then at the same time, like it's allowed me to do exactly what I wanted to do. I can't really comment on it. I don't know if it's good or bad. Like you'd have to just look at the band, I guess, and decide that for yourself. Like, but at the same time, there's definitely been points where I've been like, shit, I wish we had a manager so bad. You've got to look at stuff like when it starts coming to budgets or it starts coming to like booking tours and how the band are going to survive for the next 2 months in America. Like you have to look at that stuff and it's like, I'm so underqualified for this. I don't know the answers. And especially when you're in a band with boys, they all look at you and they're like, yo, Josh, what are we doing? And you're like, I don't know. I don't fucking know. So you don't always know the answer. It's hard. It's really hard. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer to being managed or not. There are some amazing managers out there. And if you find one, hold on very tight.
I love the stories of like, I met my manager in a pub and he'd never managed anyone and I'd never been managed. And then we've been together for 20 years. I love that shit.
One of my favorite managers, Simon Bobbitt. And I know like he's managed Murph from the Wombats since forever. And you just see their relationship and you're like, yeah, that guy's got it. He knows him inside out and Murph can rely on him. And getting to know Murph now as well. Like I know how much like he loves having Simon, and I think there's something really beautiful in that. You do meet certain people and they've had a manager forever and it just really works. Also doesn't for some people, you know.
So the band's been around for years, and you started it in your teenage years and then kind of brought it to life when you kind of hit college and uni. When was the point where it started kind of snowballing and you had to kind of take it more seriously and maybe ditch your Pizza Express job? Like what did that transition look like?
It was probably like our first year of uni. We'd started playing gigs and earning a bit of money and started getting label interest. We just brought out this song called Something Beautiful, which was like our first ever proper single. And stuff started rolling and you start to see like money coming in from different areas. I think like you have to be honest, like until you can financially do it without having another job, that's the point in which you do it. Like that's just the way it works. At the end of the day, your rent's still going to come out your bank account. That's how I've always seen it. It's coming out either way. But like one of the best moments, 100% of my career was going into Pizza Express in my town and just being like, oh, I'm going now. And they were like, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, oh, I'm going to go and do my band. And they were like, yeah, okay. Good. And I remember just being like, fuck you. Which was so nice. Like not having to serve dough balls all the time. It's a really hard position. And I would always say to people, like, it's all about diversifying your income, right? So the biggest thing for us as a band was that, yeah, we'd signed this record deal, which definitely put us way ahead of where we needed to be, which was amazing. But at the same time, like my whole head was like, I'd seen so many bands say they get, I don't know, a 50 grand advance. They split it between 5 of them. One goes and buys a car. One gets fucked up on coke. One goes and does something else. And it's like we did it so smart that it was like, right, we're a business and we've just had investment. How do we now work this? And one of the first things I did was set up this company called Animals in Costume, which was a merchandise company, which was sustainable, environmentally friendly, and yeah, just really well done, because I didn't want to sell crappy black t-shirts from Korea anymore. And I would never wear it. So why would I want someone who was purchasing it to wear it? So that was one of the first things we did. And that then kind of like helped with the band. But you have to think of it as a business and a brand. And you have to think of how it is you're going to sustain it. like I just said, your rent's going to come out either way. And if you're paying rent by working at Pizza Express, you're not writing songs. And that was my whole thing. Like, as soon as I can be writing songs every minute of every day, we've got a way better chance of doing this. So that's what I would always implore someone to try and do, is that the most valuable thing is time. So you're basically trying to work to free up time so that you can do what you want to do. If the weirdest thing is what people do is like, they sign a record deal and they're like, we've done it, guys, let's chill. And you're like, no, this is the start point, not the end point. Like, this is the point at which you have to work now. And I think we did that really well. And that's maybe where we're at now. And that, you know, it's a shame you see so many of your friends and like people in bands, you'll have seen this, and they're like on the tip of doing something, and then they just chill a bit, or they go and get fucked up for a few nights and spend all the money, or they put it in the wrong place. And you're like, oh, you were so good, what happened? And I think that's really annoying. And that could happen. Who knows? Like, by no means have we in any way succeeded in what we want to do. But at the same time, we've hopefully now got a business where we're like, yeah, we can do music and this is what we do. And we can spend every minute of every day doing this. Like, that's the point.
You're definitely succeeding though. Like, obviously maybe there's an end goal, and like, it's probably really healthy to have different places that you want to reach, but
yeah,
you've got to take a step back and acknowledge you're on the right track. Like,
I don't feel that in any way, shape, or form. Really? Yeah, it's weird. I don't think it's even like being guilty of like self-deprecation. I don't think it's like, oh, Mikey, stroke my ego, please. It's just not like that. I think it's just that, especially with COVID, like we were in the States on the, you know, there was that week where there was the toilet roll week, and then there was the really bad week where everyone was getting stuck. And we just got to New York, so we had 6 weeks planned out. We'd done Toronto, and then we were just about to play a show in New York. The New York show got cancelled, and then we got a call off our record label, like, you have to come home now or you're not coming home. And we lost so much momentum because that was 6 weeks finishing in LA. Everyone was talking about the band, which was way cool. Like, we were on Radio 1 all the time. It was bubbling under. Everyone was like, Larkins, 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 which was cool. And then it's like COVID. Everyone got hit by COVID, and I'm not saying in any way we were the worst off at all. And that's, you know, I'm making that very, very clear. It just happened to be in that 1 week where it was like, oh shit, that really stung, that really hurt. And like, financially, it really hurt us, and it just knocked the momentum out. So we turned to socials, which was awesome. And I think a lot of people like hid away, whereas we were like, okay, this is the hand we've been dealt. Let's start Twitch streaming. Let's start going out on YouTube every day and whatever. But I think that was the point in which I was like, that really hurt. And that's, I think ever since then, I've struggled to like put into perspective where we're at. Like, we're playing Electric Brixton, which is 2,000 capacity in April, which is fucking amazing. Yeah. But I'm still like, oh yeah, I wish it was Brixton Academy.
But it will be, because what was the last one? Heaven, 1,000 to 2,000. So you're
it's very cool
in 6 months.
Yeah, I feel very blessed about that. And like, we've done some massive shows in Manchester, which has been amazing. And we get to do these amazing festivals, and I feel very blessed. I think it's hard as a musician to be like, oh yeah, we're doing well. I don't ever feel like that.
I'll put you out of your misery then, and we won't.
Thanks.
I won't make you talk about how well your band's doing.
Crumbling.
So what does the rest of 2022 look like? What's the plan?
Just write as many songs as possible. I think there's some amazing artists out there, and being able to work with them, especially some of the young female artists that are UK based, I think it's a really exciting time to be in pop around that genre. And like this lo-fi like revolution that's happening, I'm just all here for, and I love it. And I think there's some people writing some amazing songs, and if we can help do that as Soap, that's amazing. With Larkins, we go on tour in April. We'll hopefully be in the States at the end of the year, and hopefully have an amazing festival season. But I think the plan is to maybe get another EP out at the end of the year. I've probably written another 2 records, whether the time comes that we'll just skip the middle record, I don't know. But it's really exciting, and music's exciting. And I feel I definitely had a year, 6 months after the record, like 3 months before and 3 months after, where it was really flat. I definitely had a bad period. And now I feel like excited about music again, which is good.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Josh. Thanks for taking the time.
Dude, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Plant Daddies podcast.